Good morning. It's Tuesday morning and the sun is out and all is well. And I'm back here for my 30-day challenge with you guys. So yesterday I talked about hating my body, a time in my life when I hated my body. And ironically enough, today is kind of a continuation, a little bit, it's connected to it. So I started, as I've shared, all of that negativity towards my body started when I was 10. But ironically, by my teenage years, my body kind of started to turn on me, as it were. And so in high school, I remember I would wake up in the morning before school and I would have a sour stomach. And I would actually, I'd have to get out of the shower and then lay down on the bed and just lay there until it passed. And I didn't actually think anything of it. What's up, Luis? I didn't actually think anything of it at the time. I just went about my day, did my thing. And then long about college, things started to get a little bit worse. So in college, I started to experience acid reflux. And again, when it first started happening, I actually had to talk to a doctor because I didn't know that was acid reflux. I just knew I felt very uncomfortable after eating. And I had a friend who'd kind of said in passing, like, Sarah, you've got a lot of gastrointestinal issues. And I was like, and just kept on doing my thing. I didn't think twice about it. However, by my late 20s, I was actually vomiting pretty regularly. I was not bulimic. I was not making myself vomit. It was not an uncommon thing for me to wake up in the morning, start getting ready to go to work, and then have to stop to throw up. And then I would just wait until the discomfort passed, and then I would just go to work like it was nothing. And what's funny is Forrest, what's up, Forrest? He was the one that kind of said something to me about it. Like at one point he asked me, like, why did you never ask yourself what was wrong when you were throwing up, like, randomly? And I don't know. But I know now it's because I was so disconnected to my body that I just kind of took for granted. I mean, I don't even think I ever thought, like, oh, everybody must do this. This was just my day. And so I went about it. And it actually took Forrest, finally, I'd gone to bed and he had looked up all night, like, hey, he'd looked up IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, because he was worried about me, and which was so sweet. And I had never taken the time to even look up my symptoms. And that's how disconnected I was from my body at this point. And you can imagine if you hate something, right, then you don't become curious about it. You want to turn away from it. And that's what I had done, unfortunately. And so when I finally did identify the problem, I was very relieved at first because and I'll talk about this in later videos, but it's funny how sometimes you don't realize how much pain you're in until you're out of the pain. And this was an example of that. When I finally identified that wheat was the problem, it was like, oh, thank the Lord. However, that quickly gave way to depression because I loved bread, you guys. I don't know how many of you are like this, but if you had put me on a deserted island and said all you can eat is bread for the rest of your life, I think I would have been okay with it. I loved pasta, all sorts of things. And so I quickly became depressed just because I didn't know what I could eat then. Like, what can I eat? That was one reason I got depressed. Secondary reason I got depressed was because, and this was the worst thing for me, then I had to ask for help. And for me, asking for help it's not painful because of pride. If someone helps me, that's fine. Like, I have got no pride. I didn't want to put people out is the problem. So to me, the absolute, like I had two of my teacher friends that I worked with. Every Wednesday we would meet up, and one of them would make pizza for us, homemade pizza. And you guys, I'm not even kidding. I I was almost in sweats when I sat down at the keyboard to email her and say, hey, I can't eat wheat anymore. And I had actually gone and looked up, like, well, here's a different gluten-free recipe we can do, or I could just bring my own food. It's all good. You don't have to worry about me, because I was just so adverse to, I didn't want to put anybody out. And of course they loved me. They cared about me deeply. And they were like, oh, no worries. We've dealt with that before. Like, we'll figure this out. It's all good. And so I was very lucky to have people around me that loved me more than I was able to love myself at that point. But that said, as I began to go along this path that I thought was just going to be this extreme hurdle, extreme obstacle, I started to discover that having to ask these questions, having to figure out what foods worked for me and what didn't, that gave me a vital gift. And I've alluded to this gift in past videos, but the gift that gave me was the gift of boundaries, the gift of, and keep in mind, in order to have good boundaries, you first have to know what you're okay with, what works with you. And so I had to be willing to turn towards the pain I was experiencing in my body, and I had to be willing to listen to it so that then I could tell other people, I unfortunately can't have that right now, or, oh, that doesn't work for me, so sorry. And I learned that when I go to restaurants, it's okay for me to tell the waiter, hey, can you tell me if this has wheat in it? Because I just can't have that. Some of you might be like, what? That was your difficulty? But hey, we've all got our stuff, right? And then more importantly, as I began to learn those skills of simply saying, hey, I can't have wheat, that also set me up for my later transformation. That springboarded me into a position where when I adopted this new system, this new framework, I could wholeheartedly do it. There was no question of like, oh, well, I know I need to, weigh myself today, but somebody says I need to run out the door to do this, so I'm just not going to do it. Now, all of these things, they followed the same pattern that the gluten intolerance taught me, which is, well, what works for me? That's what I'm going to do. And on we go. So ultimately, this allergy, this intolerance became like a guide on my shoulder, reminding me to turn my attention back to me when it started to get too far off course, as it were. And so the reason I'm sharing this with you today is because I really wanted to share my path. What's up, Ben? I really wanted to share my path out of this in hopes that it might help you if you're experiencing anything similar to this. So what I did in order to identify this intolerance I had was I went on something called an elimination diet. And what that looked like is for 2 weeks, I eliminated all things that could cause inflammation in your body, and that typically do cause inflammation in the body. But a lot of people can tolerate them better than some of us can. So those 4 things that I cut out were wheat, dairy, sugar, and alcohol. I know, those are like, wait, those are the 4 things we all want. Why would I want to eliminate that? Bear with me on this one. What I did was for 2 weeks, you cut all of those things out of your diet. And then after the 2 weeks is over, you pick one of those things to put back into your diet. That way you can start to identify, because if you just pick one randomly, but you don't let anything else go, they could be interacting with each other in sort of a weird way. And so if you cut them all at once, give yourself 2 weeks for your body to adjust, and then notice over that 2 weeks, just notice. Guys, I can tell you, I was able to identify wheat for me very quickly. But just notice things like, are you burping less? Is it easier to go to the bathroom? I'm not going to get into too much information here on this video, I promise. But you'll start to notice, like, do you burp a lot when you eat a certain food? So that's the big thing that I would offer for you to do. The little thing, if you're like, I'm not ready to cut out food like that for 2 weeks, then I just offer you the simple practice. When you eat something, take a pause before you start eating. Just check in, feel how you're... Are you still with me? I just got a random phone call. Oh, anyways. Pause, a mindful pause right before you eat. Check in, see how you're feeling before you start eating. And then as you eat, start to notice how you feel. And oftentimes, physical sensations are closely tied to emotional sensations. So something else you might notice, if you always get depressed after you drink like a margarita or something, it could be that there's something in that margarita that's not working for you, you know? And the same thing with food. If you love a food, but you get done and then you just kind of feel sort of lackluster, it could be that food isn't benefiting you. And it might just be that food isn't benefiting you right now. Maybe some foods are a sometimes foods for you. So I also want to offer that to you. This doesn't mean that you have to live the life of this austere, like, I don't eat anything fun anymore. It just means you're checking in with you, and you're listening to you, and you're taking care of you. So give that a shot. Definitely comment below if you've got foods that maybe if you have foods that you sometimes eat because you know you don't do great with them, but you can handle them every now and then. Share those foods with us down below. And then don't forget, after this week, I'm going to start doing these live videos on a different private group. The reason is we just want to make sure that our gym group is dedicated to, gym stuff. And then if you are enjoying these messages and you want to stay tuned into the conversation, we'll be doing those all on a separate group. I will post the link to that group in this post, so you can request to join there. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday. I will either see you at the gym or I'll see you online tomorrow. Take care.